This is the Bear Country Outdoors Barely a Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Joyce, and with me is James Forsland and Chris Cantrell.
What's up, Doug?
How's it going?
Happy to be here.
Right on.
It's gonna be awesome.
Today we're going to share some of our most wild and memorable hunting stories. We are also going to discuss what hunting means to us and our connection to the wild outdoors.
Let's do it.
So, to start off, I already know that we're going to have some juicy stories to talk about.
So good.
So why don't one of you guys start us off?
Let her rip, James.
All right. So, should we do a bear story, a deer story,
Well, let's put it
elk
this way.
story,
Let's
wild?
let's mix it up. So, if you tell a bear story, maybe the next person do something
Okay,
different.
I'll tell a bear story because I brought a prop today. So
Yeah. You did?
Chris can
It
do
was-
a deer
It
story,
was show and tell.
unless you want to do a deer story, and then Chris could do an elk story.
It's
'cause he's probably
okay.
got more elk stories. But
I mean, I've shot hundreds and hundreds of geese too, so I got some stories.
oh
for
yeah,
that,
we could do
too.
some bird hunting stories too.
Yeah.
So I'll just kick it off here with a bear story since we're barely a podcast.
Yeah. With
And
Bear Country
I'll-
Outdoors.
I'll try to barely get through this story.
Here we go.
So
The puns are coming out.
if you guys could see this, which you would if you're watching the video, but this bear right here, the one I'm talking about, this is a bear that I shot when I was probably about 20, maybe 21 years old. I wasn't even quite able to drink yet, so I must have been like 20. This is his skull right here. That bear scored just shy of 19, so it wasn't quite Boone and Crockett, but it was a 6.5 foot bear. So anyways, I'll just dive into this story. So got to rewind back to young 20-year-old James. Here I am just learning about bear hunting. You know, I've been bear hunting for about 4 years. I think I started when I was about 16. And so I would have been bear hunting for about 6 years by then.
Wait,
shot
how
a-
old were you?
20.
20?
Yeah. Started when I was 16
Yeah.
on my first bear hunt. And then,
I keep forgetting.
I don't
how
think I
young
shot
we
a
were when
bear.
we started hunting.
yeah, I was going out with friends and family and stuff, probably like, once or twice a season when
Right.
I was young, because we didn't get after it like we do now. But anyways, so this bear was the first bear that I really like patterned and like targeted a specific bear. It's not really a wild story. It's just a story.
Was it Western Washington or Eastern
Yeah, Western Washington.
Western Washington. Okay.
Up by, Oso, Darrington area,
Yeah.
up in there, up in the thick blackberry areas. So we had this spot that we had been scouting for a while. It was like early spring. We started going in there and we started seeing bears all over the place. And we're like, man, this would be a great spot to come back to. So we went back up there August 1st. We didn't see anything. Hunted a couple other areas, didn't see anything, and I thought, you know what? I keep seeing sign on this road from this specific bear that we saw in the spring, but we would never run into it. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hunt that bear every single day after work until I kill it.
So it's West Side.
Yep, West Side Washington.
All right.
So, and this is what I tell people all the time, is like, if you're bear hunting, like what's your most important tip about bear hunting? It's persistence. It's like you're not going to get a bear every single time. And sometimes it might take 20 days in a row before you actually get a shot off.
Quality
Yeah.
tip, James.
That's
yeah,
for sure.
if you're hunting Western Washington.
Yeah.
There's areas you can get into where you get thick bears, and we've gotten better at it now.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like if you're a new bear hunter, number one thing is persistence.
Yeah.
So I would go every day after work. I would get off and zoom up there, get it to my spot, and I would hike, the road. And I thought my theory was it was too thick to hunt anywhere else. So it was like if I hunted the road every single time, eventually I'm going to catch that bear that's shitting on the road.
Yeah.
And so this
'Cause you were finding it everywhere.
Yeah, this particular evening, I hiked in. I would hike in from the bottom. I would park at the bottom, and sometimes the gate was unlocked, sometimes it wasn't. It was depending on if they were working in there, and
Yeah.
there was people that had keys to the gates. We actually did have a key to that gate at that time, but anyways, I would park at the bottom, and we would go into the spot. Well, I get about a mile in, and this quad passes me on the road. And I'm like, crap. Like, there goes my hunt. Like, it's blown now. But I was like, nah, I'm just going to keep going. So I kept hiking, and
Persistence.
yeah, a little bit of time goes by. and I come around this corner, and like all of a sudden, like the woods just go silent. You know, like when there's a predator in the area, sometimes the woods will get very silent, like birds stop chirping.
Right.
Stuff.
It's
And
really
then-
eerie too.
Yeah, and I just happened to just like kind of pick up on that. It was like, you know what? I feel like there's a predator or something in the area right now. So I just kind of slowed down my pace a little bit, checked the wind, was like, okay, I'm good on the wind to go in this spot. And I came around this corner, and the second, like it was a 90-degree hairpin turn. And the second I came around the corner, he was standing in the middle of the road eating blackberries on the side. And I was just like, oh, there he is. Like, and it was just like one of those moments, like, it was like, I got him, because he was broadside. And I just threw up and shot really fast. It was probably 80 yards. Dropped him in the road, just bam, just flat dead right in the road. And I was just like, yes.
What
I
are you
was
shooting?
so jacked. 308.
Classic.
Yep. 180
The
grain.
trusty
Classic
uh,
James.
yeah.
Classic James.
Yeah.
Nozzler partitions. And I get up to the bear, and I'm like, man, this is a hammer. Like, he was a 6.5 foot bear. Like, for me, it was like the biggest bear I've ever seen at that time. And, you know, I if I would have stopped, like when that quad went by, that moment would have never happened. And the funny thing is another quad was coming up the road, literally like less than a minute after I got to the bear. I hear this, and here's this another quad coming up the road.
Oh.
And I'm like, man, any like little moment had been a little different, and I would have blown it again. And here I am in the middle of the road with this dead bear, and these guys come up on this quad. It was this kid and his dad, and they're just like wide-eyed, like, holy crap.
Were they
like,
hunting?
Yeah, they were hunting, but they were heading up to some other spot up above, and this was like fairly low down by like close to the gate, like where people wouldn't even think about hunting. And the only reason I hunted it is because it was where I was finding sign. And like, it doesn't do you any good to go
No.
up in God's
Right.
great earth in the middle of nowhere if you're not finding a sign
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So that it just taught me a lot of lessons about,
Just looking for the bear shit.
yeah, you know, about persistence with bears, and just keep hammering it. If you really want to shoot a bear, just keep going after it, and eventually you're going to run into them. It's, you know, it's not like deer hunting where you can pattern them in certain ways and target them specifically just to an area or whatever and wait for them to come out. Sometimes it's like that, but more or less it's persistence. Bears are lazy. They're kind of unpredictable in some ways. Like, yeah,
They're
the
gonna be
evenings
where
and the
the food's
mornings
at, you know?
can be better, but like a bear might pop out in the middle of the day, or
Yeah.
a bear might
That's
hear
like
a quad
that,
drive
that's
by,
like that
and
bear I
then
was trying to get after last year. He
Yeah.
showed up at a random time. I had him patterned. He was coming in like later in the day, and it just so happened on opening day,
yeah,
he showed up a half hour before I got there, and then he was gone for a week.
they'll
So-
be taking a nap and they'll wake up and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go mosey around.
Those who aren't hip on Washington state laws, you cannot bait bears here.
Nope.
You can put some corn and some alfalfa for deer or elk, but you cannot do that for bears. So killing a bear here, that's, how am I looking? My level's good.
You need to be a lot closer to your mic.
Okay, I'm not going to get closer because I'm afraid of this thing. But
I can probably turn it up.
killing a bear is even though we have a lot of them, it's not near as easy as states that can bait. So it's a pretty incredible feat to kill one. And especially if you guys
Yeah.
if you guys aren't watching this,
It's quite the advantage.
the bear that's sitting behind James is a freaking pig. The paws are gigantic. I mean,
Oh yeah, that bear
huge,
was a freaking monster.
huge paws, like grizzly bear claws on this bear. I mean, it's a big bear.
Yeah, this is a skull right here. It's people can see it. It's just shy of 19 inches, which
Is that bigger than? Is that your biggest one?
no, it's not. It's my second biggest one, but I have a couple of them in the 19 range. I've never shot a Boone and Crockett bear, which
Over
is
20.
Yeah, over 20. It'll happen eventually. I've shot a lot of big-bodied, long bears that are
Yeah.
like in the 18, 19-inch range, but it never broke the Boone and Crockett. It's a Washington State record bear.
You're right.
Yeah, I have a handful of the Washington State record bears, but I still never shot a Boone and Crockett bear.
Right.
You know, we can't all be that lucky. What about you, Chris? Where are we going from here?
So no bear stories. So I'm gonna go way back.
Way
Those
back.
of you who don't know this, I was very cheap, very efficient child labor in my younger years.
Character building.
So I worked a lot. My dad owned a masonry construction company, and so he started out. My grandfather owned Pioneer Masonry, and my dad worked for him for a little bit, and then started his own company. And then I was this big. If you're not watching, about 6'4", 265, and I was this big when I was 12. So
Just a Neanderthal.
I was
of a
I
man.
had a beard when I was like 10.
Oh, you were one of those guys.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a reason it's white, and I'm 43 now because it's just like I'm.
Did you have people asking
exponentially.
you to buy beer for them?
100%. I was the only guy in high school who didn't drink, literally, and I was the guy who had to go buy beer.
Oh man,
Yeah. I was a nerd. I was totally a nerd.
that's awesome.
So I go. I have an accident where I crush my spinal cord, unfortunately, and I'm in a body cast for 3 months. I get this body cast, and I'm living in North Everett at the time. And then my neighbor goes, "Hey, you want to go deer hunting?" And I'm like, "Sure," because I never really got to go hunting when I was younger. I'm 20 years old at the time, and
This is after you got jacked up.
yeah, so I literally just got out of a body cast, probably like 2 months prior, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go do this. Yeah, that sounds cool." And I don't know anybody who hunts, and like I said, I just grew up working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy, my neighbor Gabe, if you're listening, Gabe in Eastern Washington, strong work. You started all this. So Gabriel Rodriguez takes me over to Eastern Washington. I remember we pulled up, and I'm super jazzed. So I go out to Walmart. I got like $5 to my name, and I go there. I buy like their denim pants, but they're camo.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I got the mossy oak pattern like
Yeah.
shirt. It was like $3.99, and I'm just proud as a puppy with 2 packers. I mean, this is like I feel so cool. And I show up, and I have one rifle that
Yeah.
I bought when I was going to college in Ellensburg. I bought it at Bi-Mart because it was on sale.
Nice.
Oh, good old Bi-Mart.
Good old Bi-Mart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those who know, right? And I got the scope for free because the lady rung it up, and I'm a terrible person. I didn't tell her. Like, I'm still gonna burn in hell for this story. No one knows that. So I take this gun over, and I haven't shot that much, and I go over there, and I'm like, yeah, I think this can kill a deer, And I'm not gonna mention the caliber just in case WDFW is watching this. But so I go over there, and I meet these guys, and I remember I first walked in, and my buddies. I didn't even know the guy at the time, but he's a really good hunting buddy of mine now. And I was just showing the fellas this hunting footage of this old guy, Joe. So old Papa Joe Nicholson, and he's just like oldest time, killed of everything on the planet, worked in the Alaska pipeline. This guy's like a legend, right?
Nice.
And I remember I show up, and he's sitting there, and he's back when he drank, and he's like sitting there drinking like cactus juice, which is like a horrible, horrible tequila. And he's like, "Who's there? I can't see it." And it was dark, so I'm like, "No, I'm right here." But I had all my camo on because I thought it was cool, and like he was totally making fun of me, and I didn't get it, So that was my introduction and all these guys are sitting around a fire, and they're like, I can't see you," and I'm like, "No, I'm right. Guys." I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, I get it."
Got
Okay.
you.
Yeah, got me.
The camo joke.
Yeah, the
real,
camo joke.
Real funny.
So you hadn't met any of these guys?
No,
yet?
I'd never met
Okay.
any of them, and
so you were the FNG of the group.
Yeah, and literally, I'll let Doug explain what that means, because I'm not gonna hurt the children's ears
Yeah.
watching this.
Let's just put it this way: you're the new guy.
I'm the new
Yes.
guy. I'm totally the new guy. I've never shot anything minus like a bird, or I shot a bunch of ducks and geese in high school, but that's it. I've never shot a big game animal in my entire life. Like literally bigger than a goose. A goose is the biggest thing I'd ever shot. So I go there, and I'm like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm super excited, and I have my work boots on, which are my dad bought me when I was 14, when my feet were size 14, right?
Oh man,
Literally, and they're steel-toed redhead boots, which were sweet boots, by the way.
Dude, I used to hunt in steel toes too.
Yeah, and so I'm like, and they're just like, "You got steel-toe boots?" Because the tips are worn
Yeah.
off so they can see, And I'm like, "Yeah, these are sweet boots," And they're like, I don't know about this kid.
Yeah.
So I meet all these guys, especially I'm with Gabe, and he goes, "Yeah, we're gonna stay in this this tent trailer with these guys." I'm like, "Sweet, sounds good." So it's me and Gabe and Travis and Jed, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna take you out." And these guys are like super cool, hip. We've killed stuff since we were like could walk, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
I
that.
think we all
I'm
have.
not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that dude. I'm 20. I'm almost 21 years old, and like I've never shot a big game animal. So they're just like, "Oh God, this guy, right?" so they're like, "Hey, first day, we're gonna go up to this place. It's called the Graveyard." I'm like, "Okay, sounds cool." So
Yeah.
we get up at dark 30.
Sparks your interest right away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we drive. I remember we drive up, and he's like, "We got to hike up over this ridge and down around this corner." I'm like, "Yeah, this is gonna be so cool." And I remember that he's just like, "We're just gonna fan out, and then the deer will filter through." And I'm like, "Yeah. What time do the deer filter through? Like, is it like 7:05 or 7:15? So I gotta like set my Swatch watch, or like, how does this work out? And he's like,
Yeah.
and they're looking at me like, "What's wrong with this kid?" And so I remember I find an old like a crappy pine tree, and I'm sitting underneath it, and I'm like, I'm so jacked. I'm super jacked. And I remember it starts to snow a little bit. It's like second week of October.
Oh, yeah.
And it's usually fairly warm in Eastern.
Yeah.
I'm in Eastern Washington. My Winthrop, if people don't know, Winthrop.
Yeah.
It's like the deer mecca of Washington.
Yeah.
And it's a hunter mecca of Washington.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting
Call
there.
It is
pumpkin
now.
patch.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm super jacked, and I have I'm trying to remember the exact knife I had. I remember I had a rubber handle. I had like
Is it a Gerber or something?
it was a Gerber Gator.
Okay.
The Gerber Gator, and it was like brand new, and it was like $15 or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
100 years ago. So I thought, I was like, that was a big purchase.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got this knife, and I got my gun, and I hear it's a super steep hill, right? So I'm
Yeah.
looking downhill, really, really steep, and I hear a shot at the bottom, and I'm like, oh man, somebody shot a deer, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like full alert, super excited. The snow's coming down. And sure as shit, here comes like 4 or 5 deer up, and it's like doe. So in Washington, especially in winter, it's 3-point or better, right?
Yeah.
And I'm hunting mule deer, and never done it before. So they're just like, hey, make sure, right?
Yeah.
And so I pull up my Simmons scope, that's like $8.
Yeah.
And these deer come in. Oh, doe. Oh, it's a doe. Oh, it's a doe. And then I don't even need the scope, and I see this buck, and I'm like, this thing is massive. It's so
Really?
big. Oh, just the biggest deer I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah.
So he comes up and he stops at like I don't know how far it was, 170 yards, something like that. And I stand up. I remember
You stand up.
I stand up because I'm super stealthy, and I know that this is how you deer hunt, right?
Guy.
I'm the new guy. I'm the FNG, and blouch, and I touch off.
Shooting at a deer like you are bird hunting.
Oh, and I am jacked beyond.
Yeah.
Like I am I'm shaking, and I literally I stand up, and I'm talking like if you ever seen like a 3-gun competition and how fast a cowboy shoots, I'm like I stand up, boom, that fast,
Yeah.
and the deer just lays over, and I'm like,
Oh man.
I got it.
So lucky.
So this is the kicker, right?
Yeah.
So it's 2000, right? That's the year.
Okay.
So I reach in my pocket in my cargo pants
Nice.
and pull out my wind Kodak camera, and I go and I wind it, and I press the button on the front. People who know, and it goes.
Yep.
Yeah,
it
the
charge
charge the flash, yeah.
And I'm 200 yards away and take a picture, and this deer stands up.
No way.
I swear to God. And I'm like, oh, shit. And so I put
Stands
stands up,
up.
and it's like, what was that? Because a giant flash goes
Oh,
off,
man.
right?
Yeah.
And so I put the camera back in my pocket. The deer starts running away. I shoot like 2 or 3 times, maybe. I don't remember. Anyways, long story short, it runs down the hill, dies like 100 yards. Like, I don't even know how it stood up. Probably because someone took a Kodak camera out with a flash.
With the
And
flash.
took a picture like 3 seconds after he got shot. And so
You revived it.
and I go down there, and the deer's like wedged under a log, and I'm super, and again, Kodak pictures, and I probably have like old guy print somewhere around here of
Nice.
this deer. But I went up, and I was so jacked, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember Travis and Jed came over, and then Kenny was a guy I met on that trip who I'm still buddies with today. And he walked up the hill, and he goes, he's the one who shot. And he goes, oh, yeah, I shot at a coyote. And I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
So he pushed him up?
And he pushed it, and he's like, oh, I didn't know there was a legal buck, you know? And I'm like, and so anyways, they showed me how to like gut this deer and deal. And anyways, I bring him back to camp, and I am, again, so proud.
Nice.
I am so freaking proud.
Do you have the rack? Is it one of these?
It's that buck right there.
This one?
And I told the guy, I go, hey, I want to mount this thing. What do I need to do? And he goes, and Joe Nicholson, if you're listening, who's the most ornery, cynical man in the whole wide world, and I love him to death. And he's like, and I'm like, Joe, this is my first deer I've ever shot, and it was a two. If those of you who are not watching, it's a 2x3 little. It's not a big buck, and I mounted it, and it went with it, and I obviously renting houses, and it went from house rental to house rental to house rental.
Oh, dude, that's a hammer for Washington in general.
Oh, dude,
Come on, dude.
And I was so proud. And so I shot that deer. So I'm 43, right? I shot that deer when I was 20. And if you're watching right now, that created everything you see, minus James Spare right there.
Yeah.
But like, it was. I've never done cocaine, but I think it was like cocaine because like I was hooked.
I know for you getting started in your 20s, like early 20s, and to do what you've done, like you must have just wrecked animals for a handful of years.
Wrecked.
Yeah,
and I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
and we're gonna get to why I love it a little later in the podcast.
Yeah,
a little later.
Yep.
Oh well, I don't know. I guess my story that is memorable to me would have to be probably the first year that we went deer hunting, Jim.
Yeah.
That was our first deer hunt.
Our first deer hunt. I had been hunting before then.
I had been duck hunting and bird
a
hunting.
Rifle.
I hadn't done that, but I had been duck hunting and bird hunting, but I hadn't gone big game hunting yet. And it was our first time. It was our cousin's.
That's a good one.
Devin's first year.
Yep. It was his first year. Was David hunting
David
too?
was there, but he wasn't carrying a gun, so he wasn't hunting yet.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if Devin was carrying it. He might have been. I can't remember.
We'll have to ask him.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was 9.
I know me and you were.
Excuse me, what?
I was 9.
Years old?
9
Yes.
years old.
That was 9. I was.
You were either 10 or 11.
Yeah, 10 or 11. Yeah. Dude, we were young.
We were pipsqueaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you at?
So we could shoot,
This
we
is
could
up in
shoot
the
does.
Northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whitetails.
Whitetail country.
Yeah.
But so those of you not watching, Doug is like 8 feet tall and 900 pounds, so he could get away with it when he was 9. So
yeah, this is a long time
We were
ago.
probably the same size back then. Like I was a couple, like a handful
I
of
didn't
years
hit
older
my
than
growth
Doug.
spurt yet, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I was still kind of the small one. So anyway, it was definitely a crazy experience because I had never been in that area before. Had you been there before?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
So that was
my
your
first time there.
being
And
in
all
there.
we knew was like,
Go
we're
here.
going to hunt deer, and there's going to be
Yeah.
deer. And back then there was a shitload of deer
There
everywhere.
was deer everywhere. It was like you could walk into any part of the woods and there was deer. Mm-hmm. It was, yeah.
We ruined a lot of opportunities.
That we did. So I guess in this case, we were camping in the lower area because the gate was closed, and in the area that we were hunting, it was a timber company area, and they'd closed it for, people had been ringing trees and stealing lumber, so that's what they did. So we were hunting the lower area, and later on in the years, as we hunted over there, we got to hunt up there because they opened the gate, but in this case, we only had, we had to hike in.
Yeah.
And it was really thick back then, it seemed like, in that lower area. They hadn't really touched it logging-wise. And then there was also a lot of big timber, and there was a lot of, the Christmas trees and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it was kind of tough, like, for me. I didn't really see a whole lot the first
you were
couple
9
of days.
years old.
Yeah. I mean, it was like every step, my heart was like beating out of my chest. You know what I mean?
Because we would be like walking around never putting our guns really on our shoulders. It seemed like we always had them like ready to go.
Ready to
we
go.
thought, this is what you have to do
Just
when
full
you're
of
deer
piss
hunting.
and vinegar, just
Oh,
like
yeah.
ready to let her rip. Like on the first scene, and then there's grouse everywhere, like
And not
blowing
only
your
that,
blowing
but
your heart
it
out
was
of your
an
chest.
any deer for youth.
Yeah,
So you could shoot
you
does.
could show does. So
And
it was
we
like
were
anything.
ready
Yeah.
to do whatever.
Yeah, we were like, yeah.
So are you hunting by yourselves? Or you hunting with your dads?
Oh, it was a family trip.
Yeah.
All right.
It was, our uncle.
Well, obviously he didn't drive you there, Doug.
Well, yeah, I was 9 years old. I mean, how did I get there?
Yeah.
Doug took a bus.
Doug took a bus and a quart of whiskey.
I can't remember if we stayed in the wall tent that year. I think we did.
You did, yeah, for sure.
So
Because I think we were so poor. We had like the crappiest tent. At some point, we went and stayed in your tent for a night or something as kids.
Yeah, and
Because your dad had the Mr. Heater, the double.
it
was
the
like-
double propane
gee.
hooked to
Oh,
the
yeah.
5 gallon
Yeah.
tank. Oh, that thing just
Yeah.
blew
With the wall tent.
Yeah.
And we had like some crappy fold out crap tents that were like freezing our asses off.
So paint
It
me
was-
a picture, Doug.
It was really cold too on
Yeah,
that trip.
It was.
It's the morning. And
It wasn't even
the.
it wasn't even the whole morning. I mean, just the whole trip was just like a rush, and that just like what you said, that got you hooked right
Yeah.
then and there. And I mean, I didn't see a whole lot. There was one time I saw a doe, and it wasn't really the best shot. And everyone's like, "Oh, why'd you shoot it? Why'd you shoot it?" I'm like, it's just like, I'm 9 years old. I don't know what I'm doing. So, as the days go on, did you see
Dude, I saw deer all the time.
all over the place?
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are giving him, shit.
I got
He's
a
like,
bunch
why
of
would you shoot?
because the deer ran into the end of my barrel.
Well, that's what I was gonna get to.
What?
You just spoiled the story, Jam.
Oh my god. Oh, okay.
So, a long story short,
Oh man.
Jim just ruined it. So one day, him and his dad come back to camp, and we go, I think your dad was just like laughing his ass off or
Oh
something.
yeah. Everyone was. Vern thought it was hilarious.
And Jim's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you didn't have a bullet in your gun, right?
Yeah,
that was the
exactly.
time where you didn't have a bullet in your gun.
Yeah, my dad used to not let me walk around with one chambered.
Yeah.
So,
he
like,
had a
Strong
chamber.
move, Dad.
For
Yeah.
move.
At the time I was like, oh man, Dad, it cost me my opportunity. But now I'm like, man, I'd never.
So
let
he's
my kid
walking
walk
down the
around.
trail, and all of a sudden, this doe just comes barreling down the trail, and he literally jousts this deer out of the way. So he's got hair on his barrel when he comes back to camp. And we're all like, Jim, why didn't you shoot this deer? You had the
couldn't.
best chance.
Yeah. It was
So, I didn't have a bullet in my
It was
gun.
a push, remember?
Yeah.
Vern and Vernon were pushing, and they pushed all these deer, and that doe ran into the end of my barrel.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I wish I would have been able to see it. I can only imagine just
Dude.
like your face is just this doe just barreling down the trail, just about to run you over.
I literally jumped backwards off of the trail, and it just like smacked my barrel as it was running by. It was just like, oh gosh.
Oh man.
Still, nothing has ever happened like that. Like I've never actually had an animal run into my barrel since then.
Close.
That's
Close.
Close.
This last year.
But I think I did get a deer on that trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
It
what
was
we
a-
carried
it
out
was
on the
a-
stick.
Yeah. The little deer.
Yeah, we carried it on a stick, and everyone was poking its eyeballs. Like little kids, like, "Wow, look at this animal!" Like,
Yeah.
just like, wow.
Just like a bunch of little kids just having a great time. It was so much fun.
That's awesome.
And then that's how we were hooked,
That's where it all started.
That's where it all started.
First kill.
First actual deer hunt. I didn't shoot anything that year. Well,
Well, you shot.
I
know you
shot at something,
Yeah.
but apparently I hit it because
Someone
found it,
someone found it later on,
which
but
was crazy because we looked all over the place and didn't see nothing.
it happens, man. Sometimes there's no blood trails.
It's just that place over there is like our uncles always said that the deer are like ghosts. Like you can shoot them and they'll go into a bush and then all of a sudden you go up there and they're not there.
whitetail ghost.
I've actually in that area.
It's haunted.
We've shot at a buck in that area before, and it dropped down behind a big Christmas tree, and it never came out. And it was only one Christmas tree in this whole clear cut. That was it. And then everything else was like just the underbrush that eventually grows up after they log it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, where's this deer? Like, I know my dad hit it because it definitely didn't go very far.
Yeah.
So I walked up there like really slowly, and I got to a point to where I creeped up on it within like 10 feet, and it was hiding in basically one of them holes from like the root ball getting ripped out. It was hiding in that, like down on all fours, like.
Oh man.
It was just like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen, a deer doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like hiding in a little hole.
It
So I
was
threw
wounded.
so I threw my gun up and I shot, and I don't even think I hit it because I was shot through brush, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh shit, jacked around at it, and the thing like flailed over and then it died. So my dad hit it.
So you just went up on it early.
I just went up on it early and apparently just exerted all of the energy that it had left, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how those deer are like that over there.
Ghost deer.
The ghost deer.
What was your dad shooting?
A 0.6.
Probably wasn't a Cantrell Outdoors .6.
Yeah. Like that one. Was that in your shop that you were making? Of that video? Of that lever action?
Oh yeah.
No, was that 375?
The Caleb Francis Henry lever action.
Yeah.
Nice.
357.
It's got
Caleb, what's
suppressor.
up? He's my homie.
It's suppressed.
It's suppressed. It's pretty dope. We're gonna sauce it up some more. We're gonna take it out and we're gonna shoot some bears with it.
Dude, that would
Pretty
be
excited.
awesome.
Yeah.
Too bad you can't take that up to Canada.
Canada. Justin Trudeau, you suck. You're off the Christmas card list.
Oh yeah.
Freaking hate that guy.
He's
Sorry,
the
Jim
worst.
Shoggy.
I don't think Jim Shockey likes him either.
No,
I
he does
guarantee
not.
Jim. No, I've seen Jim's post. I've met Jim. We're basically best friends.
Best friends.
Yeah.
And Jim's about as solid a guy as they come, and
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau is not.
It is definitely not.
No.
Justin Trudeau. Ugh. Gives you an icky fefeeling just saying that.
Oh,
It does.
man.
I got a bad taste
When it
in my
rolls
mouth
off your
there.
tongue, Justin
Yeah.
Trudeau.
You know what it sounds like? Jay Inslee.
Just throw it out there. Who cares?
I hate that guy too.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? He's a pretty bad guy, but I don't think he's as bad as Justin Trudeau, to be completely honest. I think they're both not good people.
I don't know, dude. I think they're probably competing, but
Trudeau's pretty bad.
yeah, he's pretty bad.
He's pretty bad.
I mean, taking away,
All right, well-
trying to take handguns. Okay, we're going off on a tangent
We're
here.
getting
Yeah,
off on
sorry.
a tangent.
Sorry.
Yep, getting into politics.
Sup, Jim?
So other than, I guess Chris has definitely visited the wide realm of big game. Is there any that stand out to you that have a special meaning to it, other than it just being a trophy animal?
Oh, for sure. I got some dandy odds. Here's the deal. Doug. I got stories for days.
Yeah. we could-
Well,
I
do
gotta-
tell. That's
Okay.
what we're here for.
Well, I'm gonna let Jim go first because I don't want to break up the poker deal in here. But I know
we're staying in the loop.
Yeah, we're
right?
staying in the loop.
okay, we're
And
going
he-
around like NASCAR.
Yeah, and
Except for going the wrong way,
J-
but that's
J-
okay.
James he's got some good stories.
Oh yeah.
He's got some good stories.
So memorable, like deep-seated memorable hunts. Okay, I got one.
Yeah, other than it, kind of like what I said,
Well-
it's like a memory that you have other than like actually taking an animal. Like you're out there hunting, but you have this memorable opportunity or experience while you're there too at the same time.
Right. So
You could have a successful hunt too at the same time.
Doug, there's not a lot of stories that are really memorable to me that I didn't kill something, but I'll do my best.
You've been very fortunate to have that kind of luck.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
I mean, I've had plenty of hunts where I haven't killed something that were great.
He's the game magnet. We've been saying it
Oh,
for years.
gosh.
yeah,
Game magnet.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
He's been blessed.
If I could pick one, I'll just do this. If I could pick one hunt that, like, if your memory was going to get erased and you could hold one hunt in your head, this is one that I would probably choose to be my most memorable hunt. This was my first buck, and this is when me and my little brother David first started hunting. This is probably maybe 2 or 3 years after when we first started.
Yeah.
I mean, I was probably 14, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Little
got
kids.
we got skunked during the general season, and I was like, at that point, I was so addicted to hunting, and I was like so obsessed with it. That's all I talked about. Even asked Doug.
That's
like,
all he wanted to do.
Everything
What's
I talked
James
about
doing?
was like,
He's going
At
hunting.
14?
dude, at 14, like
Oh, yeah.
fishing and hunting, that was it. Like my entire world, I didn't care about anything else. Like I'd be watching movies and be like, "This is a stupid movie. Why aren't they hunt? Why wouldn't they shoot that deer in the movie?" just so obsessed. So
Just spinning that right there. to
we
it.
we went to our family hunting area, and we got skunked during general season. And so I was like, "Oh man, Dad, I know that there's a late season. Can we go on this late season hunt during the rut? And like, it's gonna be so much better." And Dad's like, "Oh, I can't get away from work. You know, I can't take any more days off." And then finally, he's just like, last minute, like I'm getting out of school, and he's like, "Screw it, we're going." And I'm like, "Really?" Like, "Oh yeah." Like
Feel
we're just like
jacked up.
So we're like throwing
Throw
all
all
of
your
our
stuff
crap
in, yeah.
together, and like just throwing everything it was a Jeep it was my grandma's Jeep that we borrowed to take over there. And because we were poor, dude. Like we didn't have like nice cars. Like most of the cars we had were like undependable. So we just borrowed like people's cars.
Right.
So we go over to our family
Thrash
hunting
grandma's Jeep.
we pull in at probably 2 a.m. We sleep for like 4 hours or whatever in the car. And it was the most
Freezing.
Yeah, it's freezing.
That
It's
sounds
the most.
so cold
There's
in
3 of
November
us,
over there.
and it's not like a big Jeep. It's a Jeep Cherokee.
The
it's
old, the box.
like the little tiny
Oh,
box,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It had the
yeah.
straight 6,
Yeah.
and it was the worst. I remember it was the worst night's sleep I ever had. I didn't sleep
What's
at all.
sleep? I was gonna
Yeah,
say you didn't get any
just
sleep.
like I'd just be like, I'm just like crammed in the seat with all of our crap in it.
Yeah, just
So,
trying to pull stuff on you, to
know,
like
like,
keep you warm.
All I want to do is just get out and go hunt, but we have to wait for daylight.
yeah,
So we get out and we start hiking up into this spot. And at that age, at 14, my dad would just let me go. He'd just be like, just stay in this general area, and then meet back here at this spot at whatever time. So I had to watch, and I'd always be watching my watch like, damn it, I can't get too far. I have to make it back to
just
the road
a little further.
to the spot. I'm like, oh, just a little further, And I remember I was hiking up on this other side, and my dad and my brother were over on this other mountain, and I hear this shot, and it echoes across, and I knew there was no one else at that gate, and I was like, I wonder if that was one, and many of you know this, when you hear a shot and you think it's someone in your group, I don't know about other people, but for me, I get really excited. I'm like, oh man, I hope that
Yeah,
was
me
someone
too.
else.
Super
Like,
jacked.
oh,
Super
that could have been
jacked.
this person or this person,
Yeah.
and then you're like guessing it, like, oh man, I hope they got it.
You're waiting to hear the radio.
Yeah, you're
I
waiting.
don't know if you
yeah,
had a
waiting,
radio
like,
back then, even.
Like now you get like, oh, maybe I'll get a text or,
yeah.
But back then I had a radio, and then I'm like on the radio, like, hey, was that you guys? Like nothing. And then finally I hear this radio come through, and it's like, hey, James, are you there? And I was like, yeah, I'm here. He's like, your brother just shot us a 4-point. And I'm like, oh yeah, like so jacked.
Nice.
He's like, you need to come down there and help us get it out. And so I hiked down there, and I get like halfway, like they had it almost to the gate by the time I got there, but it was a nice like 4x4, and we were like so jacked because my brother I was 14, he was 12, and it was a nice buck. My dad's like, we're getting this thing mounted, and he's just like so proud, right? It's the best dad moment probably for him, and then for us kids, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And so he's like, we're going to celebrate tonight. We're going to stay in a hotel. So we drive to Kettle Falls.
Dang.
And it's late season.
Kettle Falls.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's late. There's one motel.
Yeah.
Right. And it's back when people would smoke in the rooms and stuff, they had one room available, and it was a smoker's room. And we were just like, my dad's just like, screw it, we don't care. And it was
you're too jacked anyway.
I just remember my dad would always like looking out the hotel window to make sure no one was stealing the deer off the top of the car because it was tied down to the top of the Jeep.
Oh yeah.
So then
The good old days of doing that.
we get a great night's sleep. We have like this steak dinner at some diner or something there, and then we get up in the morning again, and we go down. We have one last morning hunt. It was just like a one full day, and then you get the last bit of the morning, a weekend
Yeah.
burn hunt.
Yeah.
And Dad has to be back to work, so we have to leave by noon. He's like, you have to be back by noon. If you're not back by noon, we're not going to make it back in any time. And I have to go to work in the morning. I'm like, okay, I'll be back by noon, Dad. So, and he still had a tag. So he was still hunting.
Still trying to hunt too.
And I remember I always wanted to hunt by myself for some reason when I was younger. And even now, like I enjoy getting by myself. But anyways, I go up into this spot, and I'm pretty close to where David had shot his deer. And I go up over the top of this ridge, and there's this doe pops out down below me, and I'm like, oh, there's a doe. And she's running, though, and she's running like side hill, and she's like probably 60 yards. And all of a sudden, I see this giant, freaking huge buck. And it was to this day, I still think it's the biggest whitetail I've ever seen. It was a non-typical. It had points going off all over the place. Like, you know how those Booga Booga Club looking deers with like the points everywhere?
Yeah.
It had points going everywhere, and it just was just chasing this deer, this doe, and it was just right on her. And by the time I threw up, it was too late because it was just like a little gap.
Right.
It was just like a flash.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and I was just about to start running to try to catch up to him and like cut him off.
Yeah.
And I see this spike
like
fly by.
Okay.
And I still was going to shoot it because it's
Right.
I'm down to the last hour. I got to be back in an hour. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
hustle to get back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I go to throw up really fast and the deer disappears. And then I'm just like devastated. Like I'm ready to start running again, but I'm just devastated because I had just seen this giant buck. And I see off in the shadows to the left, there's this buck standing there in this like big brush pile. And all I can see is its silhouette and a rack. And I'm like, oh, there's another buck. I just pull over and I just like shoot through the brush and just hammer this buck and it drops. And then I'm like, I'm all excited. This is my first buck, right? And I don't know how big it is. I know it's a buck because I could see its rack.
You can see rack.
And I'm just like,
it's a decent
oh my
one.
gosh. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, and looking back, like this is in a pretty much whitetail only area. Like there's barely any mule deer around there.
Right.
And in the lower
at
area.
this time, there wasn't a whole lot.
No.
It seems like there's a lot more.
And I start
nowadays,
like thinking,
but
oh, I hope it's not a mule deer. Like, and I hope it has. I hope it because I don't think mule deer wasn't open for the late season.
No,
and so I'm like,
it wasn't,
I hope it's not. And so I get up to it, and it's still alive because I back then you're just dumb.
Right.
You're just like, oh, I shot this deer, and you run down to it, and you're just like,
yeah.
oh, it's still alive.
Right.
Imagine that. And I threw up and shot it in the neck. And I just, oh man, it was the worst because when I shot it, the exit was like, because of the angle, it just ripped this giant, huge hole down. It was dead immediately, but it ripped this giant hole down the side. And I wanted to get it mounted. So I was just like, oh, they can't fix it. But anyways, I get back, I get down to it and I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm a long ways away. And I'm like, I have to be back by noon. Dad's going to be pissed.
Right.
And so I'm like, I better like zoom my way back.
Yeah.
So I run back and I get to the car and Dad's sitting at the gate in the car with it running like, you're late. Like, we're ready to go. Let's get out of here. And I'm like, Dad, I shot this buck. And he's like, no, you didn't. Get in the car. Let's go. And he doesn't believe me. He's like, no, get in the car. Let's go. He thinks I'm pulling a fast one on him because he's like, he can't believe it. And I'm like, no, Dad, seriously, I shot a buck. He's like, get in the car. Quit fibbing. I'm like, and I'm just like, Dad. I'm wearing my vest. I had like, for some reason, taken half my clothes off. And I just had like my vest and a white t-shirt on. And I had blood up to my elbows. And he's like, did you really get a buck? And I'm like, yeah, I got a buck.
It's like, yeah, my arms are covered in blood.
He's like, you better not be pulling a vest the whole way up there. He just couldn't believe it. And we get up to it, and he was just so proud. He was just like, oh, my gosh, both my sons got huge bucks. And they weren't huge. They were like, basket 5x5 and a basket 4x4. But he was just
can't complain,
so jacked, and we drug that thing off. And that's probably, to this day, my most memorable hunt.
You couldn't ride it any better.
No, dude. I mean, as
So
far
did-
as like a
did you
kid
mount
goes. Yeah, heck yeah, I got it mounted. It's over at the cabin.
Oh, the cabin.
Yep.
Okay.
I really miss hunting in that place.
I know.
Back in the prime.
Yeah, I did it
that
this
one
year.
time that I was telling you about where I seen more whitetail at one moment in a matter of like a couple of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Opening day, I hiked out on this area that we had already shot bucks off of the years before.
Yeah.
We knew that there was more up there. And I get to this clear cut, and I mean, it's right after shooting light. It had just gotten light enough to where I could see like anything. And I'm standing on the road, and the underbrush is probably about neck high, so you can't see me from anywhere.
This is by old camp.
The high
Upper
camp,
camp, yeah.
And so all of a sudden I was just standing there, and I kind of like was looking, and there's no way anything could have seen me because I was quiet and I was just walking slow, and I just kind of like peeked up over the edge, and I stood there for about 10 minutes. All of a sudden these bucks, they were literally laying like 5 feet from the road, just down like 50 yards from me, 5 feet from the road, jumped up, ran down the hill, and I'm like, oh shit. And it was too fast to do anything, and I was like looking down to see where they went, and as soon as I looked up in the clear cut, all I saw was heads. There had to be at least 150 to 200 whitetails bedding in this clear cut.
Yeah.
Really?
And then all of a sudden, it was just all hell broke loose, and all these deer just took off towards the
They
trees.
stampede.
It was, oh my gosh. And I just threw up my rifle. And I'm like trying to look for a buck with rack, and all I just see is just ass just running to the woods. And I'm like,
White flags
whoa,
everywhere.
it was the craziest thing. And it just so happens that I stayed there and waited for like another 20 minutes, and those bucks that took off before came right back to that same spot. And then that's when I shot that last basket 4x4 out of that bachelor herd.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, was that the same year that I shot one out there?
No, you shot one. No, that was the year before, I think, or 2 years before. We
Gotcha.
shot
So I
like
didn't go
4
over
or
there for a
5.
while.
We shot like 4 or 5 deer out of that bachelor herd in that same
I
area.
think all that was left was like a 2-point and a spike.
Yeah,
We killed like
there
some
was
4
like
points
5
and
or
5
6
points.
bucks that were just running around for some weird reason, and they stayed in that same area, and we just we shot them all over
We
the
would go up
years.
there every day and pick them off. Yeah.
That was
That was General Rifle too?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Dude, that was back in the glory days before mountain lions and wolves hit that area hard.
there
Now
was so
that's
many
the place.
deer in that area.
The place I was telling you about
Grizzly
last
bears.
week. That was like the elephant graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it's like now up there.
That's what it's like now.
Huh.
There's
And it's
nothing up there.
completely different because it's it's actively logged. So all the terrain and all the clear cuts and all the growth is just all rotating and changing. And it got to a point where it was like perfect. And then they must have done some more logging and just
Yeah.
the
I think
cats
they
started
kinda
running rapid up there. They
overlogged
kind
it.
of they overlogged it for sure.
And then the cats moved in, and they did.
It's
some
a shame.
It is a shame because I mean all those great memories, and then now you go up there and it's just a dead zone. Although I did shoot that buck fairly close to there. I mean it wasn't on the same mountain, but it was
In
fairly
that
close to
same
there in
area,
that same
yeah.
area. What about you, Chris? What do you got?
Oh, I got some good ones.
Memorable.
I got some memorable ones. Speaking of, guess who came back?
Who came back? Ooh,
Mountain lions coming back around.
Where is
Mountain lion,
where is that?
Right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I got a mountain lion skulking around my property. We had a couple problem lions like right up the road that like killed a bunch of llamas, and
Oh,
there's
man.
a bunch of lions around here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
Unfortunately,
When was that picture?
2 days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang.
No, I'm gonna go through my shotgun, and shoot in the face.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a firearms.
Please do.
It's a firearms restricted area, so
Yeah.
it's either my bow or my shotgun. And I'm like, I'm shooting my shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you can throw a couple
I
extra
think you
shells
can
in
use.
there.
Can you use a handgun in firearm restricted areas? You have to check into that. You might be able to use a handgun.
Okay. Bring out the old 454. And
454, yeah. Give it a
I don't
business.
know. I think I would feel more comfortable with the shotgun
Oh,
with some buckshot in
yeah.
it. You know?
Or you build yourself a nice slug gun, dude.
I just need a good gunsmith.
Mm-hmm.
A good
Do you know
gunsmith.
anyone?
I think I know a guy.
Weird. I got a bunch of memorable ones, but I'm going to tell you this one because it's full of like heartache and peril, and success and joy. Like it covers
All
the
of
emotion,
it.
all
yeah,
of it.
all the emotional roller coaster of
Yeah.
hunting, right?
Yeah. So to walk the listeners back and the viewers, to walk you back, imagine like clinically obese little Chris Cantrell I'm this fat little brick mason kid, and I'm working. And my dad has 4 kids, you know, and we're not like James said, we're not wealthy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we didn't have time to go hunt. We didn't have time to go do all this stuff. And so I grow up, and I do okay at my job. And my dad's like, hey, we should go to Africa. And I'm not a guided hunt guy, right? Like I've literally never ever been on a guided hunt. I've guided lots of people, but I've never been on a guided hunt before. And when you go to South Africa, that's not like, you can't just go over there and start shooting stuff, right? You gotta have a guide. So my dad goes, hey,
It's a big country.
oh, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's one of the most incredible hunts I've ever been on in my entire life, just because it's not like here, right? It's like, I'll get into it, but it's really good. So my dad goes, hey, let's go, and Mom will go too, right? And we'll have to take her to wine country, do whatever. But like, my mom's not a hunter. Like, she don't want anything to do with it. She wants like nice, luxurious accommodations. She wants some wine, rubber feet type of deal. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, like what? How many options? How many times in my life, which is running out, am I going to be able to go to South Africa with my mom and my dad? And I'm like, oh, this is a big deal.
You gotta take it.
Got to take it, right? So I'm super jacked up, and so for this hunt, I build a custom rifle, right? And like all the sauce. I mean, this thing is like, it's nice,
It's real nice.
I'm super jacked.
What caliber?
It's 300 Ultra Mag.
Oh,
Big shocker. I'm a big 300 Ultra Mag fan. And so I build the gun. I go out and shoot a ton. I do load development. I build these rounds. And
You're ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
This thing's it's a freaking rocket.
Yeah.
Literally. Right?
I'm sure.
It's a rocket.
I'm
dude.
sure.
And I'm jacked up. And so we go to the airport, me and my mom and my dad, and I'm probably, I don't know, I'm 30 something, right? And I'm super excited. And we get to the airport, and we're flying Emirates. And so Emirates, so there's kind of like 2 main ways to get to South Africa. Like, you fly like, I don't remember what it is, like whatever airline, and you go to like you fly to the East Coast, and then you fly over towards like either like Island del Sol, Johannesburg, Cape Town, whatever.
Yeah.
Or you fly Emirates, and they go basically up and around like the North Pole and over into Dubai. And I'm like, how cool would that be to go to Dubai? Because you see it on the TV, right?
Yeah.
And it looks super cool. I'm like, let's do that. What I didn't know was I hired a gal to like import all our guns and do all the stuff.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't do anything with the Dubai Police Department, which you have to have and register your gun, even though we're not stopping there, right? I mean, we have a layover.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So, and then they need to register it with Emirates, the airlines. And so I show up, and I mean, there is a mountain of luggage and guns and all
tons
this
of
stuff.
stuff.
And so we're at SeaTac in Seattle, and the lady's like, "This isn't on the flight. You can't bring any guns." I'm like, "Yeah, no. Like, contact like Guns R Us or whoever the company I hired to like take care of this, right?"
Yeah.
She's like, "No, I'm sorry." And I'm like, I'm standing there. We're getting ready to board the airplane.
Board the plane.
Right? And they're
Right.
like, "No, you can't bring your guns." And I'm like, I built a gun for this trip.
Right.
I'm taking it.
I'm taking it, right? And at the time, like, I don't have enough money to be like, oh, it's okay. I'll just, get a gun there or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. And I'm standing there, and I'm having like a little self-talk, like, don't freak out. You're in the airport. You're at SeaTac. They will tase you.
Right. Yeah.
It's TSA. They don't care. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, it's my mom and my dad. My dad's standing there like, he's in the same boat, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he can't bring his guns.
Like, I
either?
literally,
Yeah.
I have a pile of shit.
Yeah.
A pile. And my mom's just like, my mom's losing her shit. She's like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I was like, you two get on the plane, go to South Africa. I'm going to take this huge pile of crap that we have. I'm going to call my mother-in-law, who just dropped me off, to come back around and pick me up. And I'm going to go and I'm going to get all this paperwork taken care of, right?
Yeah.
And I'm crushed. I mean, I'm like, I am just mentally not. I'm so upset. And so I call my mother-in-law. She comes and picks me. This is like years and years and years ago. So it was like, luckily I had a cell phone, but I call her. She comes pick me up. Yeah, with all the stuff. She's like, what's going on? And it's like, they won't let me on the plane with the guns. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? So I go home. I get on the phone. Like, I call the lady that's taking care of all this stuff in South Africa. But
supposedly.
But the time difference, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, she's middle of the night sleeping,
Yeah.
even though it's a day here, right?
Right.
You're like, I don't care.
So she doesn't
I need
answer.
to figure this out,
And
lady.
she's like, oh, sorry. Like, that's how I went. Like, oh, sorry.
Oh,
And I'm like,
so sorry.
So sorry.
I'm gonna freaking choke you, lady. Like, I'm so mad. I don't choke ladies, but I was really upset. Unless you really want me to choke you. So I'm super pissed, right? So I go home. I get on the internet. I got to get all this crap set up. I got to send this paperwork in and pictures and serial numbers and get all this stuff. So anyways, I lose like 2 or 3 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to rebook my flight to South Africa, right?
Just flying the same airline, or
yeah.
And
it's costing me all this money. And again, like, I don't have this much money at the time, right?
Right.
And so I finally get over there, and I remember, like, my mom, my dad, and the PH, and they come pick me up from the airport. And the PH, so you got to have it's a professional hunter, so that's like your guide there, right?
Yeah.
But guiding there is not like it's here. Like, technically, I'm a guide in Washington State, right? I have my business license. It's not a big deal. There, you need to, like, go to school to be a PH. Like, it's a
big deal.
It's like a college degree, right?
Yeah.
And so the guy picks me up, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I'm trying not to be a terrible person, but I'm upset, right? Because I've lost a guy. And we're only there for, like, I think we were there for like 2 weeks or whatever, which is a long time, but it takes over a day to get there.
Yeah.
Over 24
And
hours
you're
on a
still
plane.
upset, and you're finally there.
And I'm finally there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, yeah. And so we're going, and I get and they all drive those, like, little 4-door Toyotas, right? And we get in. I don't fit. I'm all cramped. I'm like, everything's touching all the metal. And we're driving, and I'm just like, and then we're going, and
It's
then
hot.
It's hot.
Yeah.
And we're going out of Johannesburg, and then we get stopped, like, in the middle of a country road, and the police are there. And I'm like, gosh, what now, And it was like they're trying to, like, rook money out of you, basically, like, squeeze you for a radio tax or whatever. And my guy's just like, F you, and he just takes off. And I'm like, oh, like, we're going to get shot, right?
Yeah.
I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, my God, what are you doing, dude? And he's like, yeah, they're trying to get money. And I'm like, are you shitting me right now? Are you serious? So we and I'm like, no bullets flew. So I'm like, all right. And we got to have all our guns in the locked cases, right? Because I have all the guns with me.
Yeah.
So my dad's been there for a couple days now. By the time I get there, he's gone out. He's shot all kinds of stuff with, like, the PH's gun, right? You can rent it for a day and X amount of dollars per bullet.
Of course, you're gonna get there, and you're not gonna not do something.
Yeah. and he's super happy. He's having a great time, and I'm just like, and I'm all pissy, right? And he goes, well, so he has, like, the owner of the company, Shaw, taking him out, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, you get like this guy, you get this guy, right? And I'm like, oh, good. So they got to hire some extra guy to, like, I'm like the third wheel. I'm the fat kid they got to take out, like, give this kid a piece of pizza and get him out of here.
Yeah, and get him to shut up.
Yeah, and I'm still super pissy pants. And so they're like, hey, do you want to go out? And I'm like, yeah. Let's go out. Let's do this.
Like,
right?
immediately. Like, you just pull up.
Like,
unload your
literally,
stuff.
I don't even take the shit out of the truck. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, just pull your gun out.
I'm
and
like, get my gun. Let's go. And I get in another truck, and the guy is super nice, by the way. Like, all the guys are super nice. And I'm being a crybaby, and I get in the truck, and we go, and I'm like, well, like, don't be a bitch, Chris. Come on, like, let's do this. And so we're driving around, like, and we drive around for like 3 minutes, right? And there's a big ravine in front of us, and I hear, so I'm sitting in the cab, because you can imagine, like, all the rigs are left-hand drive. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, which is on the right-hand side, and the trackers, there's a safari seat that sits in the back of the truck, elevated just above the cab. And so the guys sit there. So imagine their knees are level with the top of the roof, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I hear, and they taps on the top of the cab, and the guy instantly stops. And that means, like, hey, I see something, right?
Right.
And he leans over and he says something in Afrikaans, which I speak, a little bit of Afrikaans. I'm not making out what he says, right? And I go, what's going on? He goes, oh, there's some zebra over here. And I'm like, oh, zebras? Yeah, I like zebras. And he goes, well, I'm like, where are they? And he points them out, and they can the way they can see animals and track animals, and these guys are incredible, right?
It's what they do every day.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's a black and white striped animal. You should be able to see it from like 1,000 freaking million miles. And I'm like, and I look around, oh yeah, and there's a couple over there, And I'm like, yeah, put it in park. It's like, oh no, we're way too far. And I'm like, put it in park. And the guy looks at me, and he's like, okay. Again, like I'm a fairly large, incredibly angry man at the moment with a gun, and I'm paying him to take me out, right?
Yeah, and he's like, well,
and he's like, oh shit, here we go. This fucking cowboy American,
Yeah.
And so I got like a handy cam in my pocket, right? That I bought at Best Buy.
Yeah.
Nice.
For
before
video.
you went over there.
Yeah, and so I flip out the screen, and I'm like, hey, see the red button? Can you press the red button? And I'm totally being a dick at the time, and I feel terrible about it now because the guy is such a sweetheart. And he's like, no, it's too far, and it's not that far, right? Again, I built this gun for this trip.
Yeah.
And so I get out, and it was under 700 yards, and the thing was, I literally pull my bipod out, I sit down in front of the truck, I lean against the tire, and I'm like, tell me which one. And he's like, and the guy's like, I don't know about this, like, boy.
He's like, this is gonna go well.
And I can hear him talking with the tracker in the back, and they're speaking Afrikaans, and again, like my Afrikaans is quite poor, so I'm not picking up, and I'm just like, but you can hear the irritation, like this agitated fat piece of like American, like I hate these guys, like they're all John Waynes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these zebras, and I'm like, it's very, very hard to tell the males from the females, right? Because it's not like a regular horse, right? They don't just have like people who have horses know that like you can you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, there's see that one to the left of the bush? And I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Let me do this.
Left of the bush.
And I'm like,
what bush?
Yeah. And again, and like, I'm not being a very nice person. I'm like, okay, I gotta tone this down. I'm like, okay, which one? And he talks me into it. And I was like, press a red button. And he's like, okay. And classic Best of the West TV high shoulder shot. And I'm shooting 210 burgers. And I freaking hammer this zebra. High shoulder, it drops so hard it bounces. Instantly dead.
Yeah.
And the guy looks at me, and he looks back at the tractor, and the tracker's like, and he's like cheering in Afrikaans, he's clapping his hands, and the guy looks at me and he goes, this is going to be a very good hunt.
Yes. You're making my job very easy.
This is going to be a good hunt.
So fast forward, the amount of quality time that I got with my parents on that trip, like we had an incredible time, and again, like I went way overboard. I killed tons and tons and tons of stuff, and we got to do a bunch of super long range shooting and killed all kinds of. It was super fantastic. So
sounds like a blast.
Yeah, that'd be
it was really good trip. Yeah,
and we're going back.
Yeah,
can't wait.
So to wrap things up before we get too ahead of ourselves and we get too far out on a tangent, let's talk about what hunting means to us and our connection.
Well,
I'm gonna start with you, James.
All right.
I want to say it's more of a tradition.
It's
how I've been growing up.
It's tradition, yeah, for sure.
As you can see it, and then from there on, it just became a love for it. Mm-hmm. You just get hooked, and you just can't get enough of it.
And it's a definite lifestyle.
For sure.
There's no other real hobbies outside of I have some hobbies, but nothing as serious as hunting,
right,
and fishing. Even fishing
that you devote yourself to as much.
Mm-hmm. And it's like my whole diet revolves around.
I mean, you have a ranch now, so you got that to deal with.
Yeah, but
that's more like work.
What I want to do with any of my free time is hunting.
Yeah, I feel you there.
I know you're the same way, and Chris is the same way. All of us are.
Where did Chris go? He had to use the restroom.
Yeah. But not only that, but my family basically lives off of wild game meat. Yeah. My kids, they don't know anything different. They don't eat hamburger.
Our family's been hunting for at least 100 years or more.
Oh, yeah,
the tradition's been passed down over time.
Deep-seated traditions.
I could honestly say I've never seen young children, single-digit children, eat more wild game and absolutely love it than James's kids.
Oh, yeah.
110%.
In my house, it's, what do you want for dinner? Elk steak, deer steak, medium rare. They don't, they know.
Sounds tough.
Oh,
sounds
dude,
like you got it tough over there.
We like to do the medium rare. They know that Dad's gonna lose it if they tell him to cook it through.
Oh man, you better watch that steak, Dad. Don't overcook it.
Well, Alexia, she gets mad at me if it gets overcooked. She's
Oh,
like, "This
man.
is too cooked, Dad." She's
like
like, "I
beef-
want it more
it's like
bloody."
beef
She'll eat
jerky.
it rare. Like if I just like seared it and just gave it to her rare, she'd just eat it.
Oh man,
She wouldn't even hesitate.
It's good kids.
wild.
It's awesome, dude.
That's good kids.
Okay, so one last question to end this podcast is, what can we do as sportsmen that will help keep hunting prosperous?
Chris, you take this one.
I have a couple
Take
points
a
that we
head
can
on it.
talk about.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult in the day and age where everything is online, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff. And I think it's very easy to be a piece of shit.
Yeah. No, I 100%.
It's very easy.
Mhm.
Like back when I was a kid, like when you had, and don't get me wrong, like I got beat up all the time because I weighed as much as I do now when I was 12. Like I was fat, right? and I think I have like a respect for like both sides now.
Yeah.
Like I used to get beat up all the time. I got a little older, then I did the beating up, not of like, I didn't pick on kids, but like, you know, like
No, you weren't gonna take any shit.
I was going to take it a shit, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of kids who haven't been punched in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And they would just call their mommies and daddies and sue you. And there's a lot of terrible parents out there, and there's a lot of terrible kids because there's no repercussions for anything now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
100%.
So it's really easy for someone to say, "Oh God," you know, like, and don't get me wrong, like I've seen the videos where like it's like a huge slaughterhouse and like the dude's kicking the cow in the head or whatever, and like it's a minuscule percentage of like what happens in general, but you see that one video and you get this idea in your mind, and then everyone is the same, right? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if, to be completely frank, 90 some odd % of the people who hate hunting can't do it. They physically can't do it. They mentally can't do it. They're not strong
They have
enough.
a misperception of what it really is.
It is so hard.
Yeah.
It is. If you guys could look around, I have a gym on 2 sides of my house that I get up at 5 o'clock every morning and I work out on. And I don't work out to look good. I don't care about that. I work out so I can climb up the mountain with these guys. Literally, that's it. That's why I do it, so I can hunt. It is physically hard. I had 2 guys almost die on me in Montana this year, and that's for another podcast. But that's a true story because it's really, really hard, and not only physically hard, but mentally hard.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take
Yeah.
time off of work, time away from your family, time away from my daughter? The amount of money it costs to not only take time away from work, but the amount of clothing I buy and the guns I buy and the pickup truck I buy and the trailer I buy
food
and
you
all
gotta
the
buy.
food, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I go out there and then I have to fail and then come home and tell everyone. And especially now that we're in the world of the internet, it's going to go on a podcast, it's going to go on Instagram.
Yeah.
Tell everyone that I failed. Like 90 some odd % of the people are not mentally strong enough to take care of that. There is no way. And it's the people that have the instant knee-jerk freak-out reaction. You can always tell because it's a person that's screaming, and those people are weak, super weak, mentally.
I like that.
And so I
Yeah.
feel like you need to sit down with yourself and I have self-talks with myself all the time, right? Because we're, you know, like being a business owner multiple times over, like, and you have to run people and you have to figure out like, how are you going to be successful in life? And it's not by being a crybaby or freaking out or getting the internet and calling someone a piece of shit. Like if you saw the amount of death threats that James and I get on the internet and Doug, like it's ridiculous. Like you're going to threaten my family. You don't know me.
Right.
You don't, you know, like
Just because you saw a picture of us with a dead animal that we're using to feed our families,
Yeah,
that's grounds for
it's
threatening someone's life.
it's so ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I feel like,
But those people haven't been punched in the
I
mouth.
feel like they haven't been punched in the mouth enough. But instead of punching those people in the mouth, I'm not going to punch you in the mouth. I'm going to tell
We're
you,
gonna kill you with kindness.
I'm going to invite you
You're
up
gonna
on the
get
mountain.
blocked and deleted. Is what's
I'm
gonna
gonna
happen.
I'm gonna invite you up on the mountain. I'm gonna say, come with me.
Right.
I will teach you. I will give you my time, which is incredibly valuable, by the way. Like, I run a very high, incredibly successful business. If you see what's around me, like all this costing a ton of money, I will give you my time if you're willing to come up and just have an open mind and learn. Like, hey, this is where, like, we have a huge garden outside. My daughter, all she eats is elk and deer and bear and everything that because I feel like, don't get me wrong, I'll eat a ribeye. Like, I'm not opposed to eating a ribeye, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I know where my food comes. I've failed multiple times, multiple
We all
times,
have. Yeah.
and it's so hard.
It's extremely hard.
You know, and I feel
you talk
like,
about that emotional roller coaster. That's
it's
just
horrible.
what it is.
It is horrible.
The ups and downs are just
Hunting is so hard.
yeah.
And I feel like, and don't get me wrong, like, a vast majority of the people that are listening are probably hunters, but at the same time, like, if you're a PETA person or if you're a vegan or whatever and you don't want to eat meat, that's fine. But at the same time, like, I'm not there commenting on PETA people's, Instagram saying, hey, I hope you die, hope your family burns, like. You know, I have a YouTube video that's like got like 1,000 people commenting the death threats, the bad stuff, probably more than that, honestly. And you're just like, what we do as hunters is incredibly difficult. It's financially taxing. I leave my family to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I supply something, but at the same time, when I come back, I'm a different person. Like, mentally, I am much stronger. Like,
And we're just doing the same thing that people have been doing for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Well, and people keep getting more separated from reality, and the more separation there is, the harder they fight against the stuff that we do, because they don't have an idea of what a meaningful, purposeful life really is. I mean, supplying your family with the cleanest, best meat on the planet.
Yeah.
Year
100%
after year,
organic.
100% organic.
free range, non-GMO.
Free range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't really
You can
argue
name them all.
that there's anything wrong with that. And,
No.
and if you do, then your wires are crossed.
It's a natural resource. It's the same as everything else, and I'm sure we could get super deep into that. But so the question you asked when I had to run to the ladies' room, like, why do you do it? Why do you hunt? And I've had this conversation with myself multiple times, and I've listened to like all the big hunting guys on podcasts, and you sit down and you think, like, how can I articulate this as a mush head, right? I'm like, okay, how can I do this? What am I going to say? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just a feeling. It's like in my DNA. It's literally in my DNA. It's so deep ingrained in my body as a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
Like, I want to provide for my family. I want to protect my family, and I'm fairly good at it, right? And I like the hardships. I like losing, going out there, because I learn something every time. It's like, if you're not losing, you're not learning, right? Nobody learns from a win.
100% true.
Constant knowledge gain.
Yeah.
I've definitely failed more times than I have had success.
And Doug's a smart guy.
I try hard.
Yeah.
And you just got to take the opportunities. So to come back around to keeping hunting prosperous, like, what are things that we can do? And definitely one thing that we've always talked about is definitely staying on top of predator management.
Oh,
Right.
boy.
Because that has devastated, obviously, a wide variety of animals in a lot of the hunting areas that we've always known to hunt, and definitely can tell the numbers of animals are going down
Right.
as predator numbers are going up, because no one takes the opportunities that are handed to them.
Well, Chris pretty much touched on like the mental side of how do you keep hunting prosperous.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. But then there's the literal physical side of
The
it.
physical side,
of
what you can do.
At least in our state, our biggest problem is predators.
There's no doubt
Straightforward,
about
it's
it.
predators
It's 100%.
is the biggest problem that hunting faces in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
And that's driven by politics as well. Obviously.
I didn't want to Stephen Ranelli right there, but it's Jay Inslee. That's our biggest problem.
Our biggest problem as
Jay
hunters in
Inslee
the
is a
state of
bigger
Washington.
problem than cougars and coyotes and bobcats and bears combined.
Yep, he is. I mean, if you really want to get down to it, that's the cold hard truth.
And Lorna.
Yeah. Yes.
But we'll just stick to you gotta make sure that you shoot the predators
So-
that you see.
Yes, having a bear tag, having a mountain lion tag when you're out general deer hunting is important.
Having those tags in your pocket while
And
you're
taking
out
the
there
opportunities
and
when
taking the
they're there.
opportunities for sure.
Shooting coyotes do a fair amount of damage. Bobcats do a fair amount of damage. They get overlooked a lot. You know, a lot of
For
people
sure.
don't get into that.
Yeah.
But if you have the time and you have the resources to do it, you should go
You should
out
definitely
and try.
do it and try.
Yeah, and at least
Yeah.
put in some effort to try to do your part. Everyone should be doing a little bit.
Right.
And to piggyback on that story that I told earlier, like I would have never shot that deer if Eric hadn't shot that coyote.
Right.
You know, so
You never know.
you never know.
You never know what's gonna
You never know.
happen.
When
you're
I
out
was
there in the
younger,
woods.
I used to pass up on opportunities like that because I'd be like, oh, there could be a big buck around the bend here, and I don't want to blow it. But now it's just like, oh, this is an opportunity laid in front of me to help the deer out, so I'm going to take that. And then most of the time, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm hammering coyotes,
Dude.
bro. Hammering them.
Yeah.
Coyote.
I
300
really
rolls
wish.
from
I really wish I would have shot that coyote. Was it last year? Or was it the year? No, it was
When the
last
one
year.
that came and sat in front
It
of us,
sat
and
in
like,
front of us.
was just
This is
taunting
a whole
us.
nother
Yeah.
podcast.
Oh
folks.
man,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we were bear hunting.
We were bear hunting.
We were hunting another predator, and we should have shot the predator that was in front of us. We had a
Yeah.
big talk about it afterwards.
Yeah,
but
we did. Yeah, we
like-
joked about it. I mean, it sat there for 20 minutes.
How
dude.
far was it?
Like
80 yards.
60 to 80 yards.
So this ties into at Cantrell Outdoors, we have all of your suppressor needs covered.
Yeah, that's
Well-
one big benefit of shooting a suppressor is
Yeah.
not blowing everything out of the county.
Yeah.
300 blackout.
I wish I would have known you then.
Yeah,
You
Could've
win
been-
some, you lose some, Doug.
could have been whacking coyotes silently.
Oh, well, I guess I would have to say that concludes this episode of Barely a Podcast. Thanks for joining us here at Bear Country Outdoors. And until next time, stay humble and hunt hard.
Hell yeah.